I want to bring your attention to the book of John, chapter 12. John chapter 12. And we'll be talking about a little bit about Mary and her interaction with Jesus here. But, you know, we're talking about being discouraged sometimes. Sometimes we get discouraged. Sometimes we get to the point we don't, maybe we're just going with the flow. And I heard an author that, I say heard an author because I was listening to his books. I heard him say only dead fish go with the flow, you know. And that's something that kind of struck me. And I sat there and was like, you know, sometimes I say we'll go with the flow. We'll go with the mood of the church or the direction that things are going. And I just want to make sure we don't get discouraged or get stuck in a place where we're just ultimately comfortable. But we're able to give of ourselves completely. And also we're going to look at how Jesus is on our side with this. And hopefully it'll bring some new things out. But here in John chapter 12, we'll start reading in verse 1. It says, Then 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, who had been dead, whom he had raised from the dead. There they made him a supper, which is always good. And Martha served, but Lazarus was one of those who sat at the table with him. Mary took a pound of very costly oil, a spikenard, anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with fragrant oil. But one of the disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, who would betray him, said, "Why is this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" This he said that not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the money box. And he used to take what was in it, what was put in it. And Jesus said to him, "Let her alone. She has kept this for the day of my burial. For the poor you'll have with you always, but me you do not have always." You know, we look at this passage and we see right away that, you know, they have this very special meal. It's a very special time. It's just a time where, Lazarus is able to sit with Jesus at the dinner table. They were able to have their family there with him. The other disciples are with him. They're all sitting there. And, you know, Martha's doing her usual thing. She's working. She's getting the food ready. She's setting the table. She is the worker. And here's Mary. She gets her box, her alabaster box, that is sealed, that is proven to be something of worth. We can see here as 300 denarii. You can sit here and add up all the things. We just know it was a very expensive, very, very important thing. The other passages, other gospels, they, as you tie it all in together, they say that she broke the seal. She broke open the bottle and anointed, started at the feet of Jesus, but covered his whole body in this oil. The whole house smelled like it. It's not something that you could not just ignore. But the action here is something special. You know, she was washing the feet of Jesus. She didn't have to do that. They probably had a servant or someone that would do that for them as a show of respect for a house guest coming in, wash their feet, clean them up, let them sit at the table. But she herself, she sat down, Mary sat down, and did not get any of the rags or anything that was probably folded, put away, where she could have probably easily went and got it or asked somebody to get it. She used her hair. Now, hair in this time was very important, especially on a lady. The longer the hair, it was considered a big blessing. It was an honor. In some areas of the country, they would use the hair as a covering for the face, and it was very respectable and it's very honorable to have long hair, long flowing hair. So for her to use her hair, there is a added act of humility, taking away her own needs and her own people's perception of her. She took that away. And she allowed herself to be so humble at the feet of Jesus and to be giving of herself. Now, we can get caught up in the money aspect of the anointing of this expensive oil. Judas was taken up by it. But this is the warning not to be taken up by it. If Judas was taken up by it, I think that should be one of those signs that we say, well, maybe that's not that important. Because Judas was caught up in himself. I mean, here in the word, John calls him a thief. And that's not really a good characteristic to have. Or if somebody knows you, like I know Daniel's a nice guy. I wouldn't say Daniel's a thief. That would be pretty bad. You know, that just, everybody's like perking up, like, what? Why would you say that? But we know that if Judas is over here spending time looking at the oil, looking at the box, I could almost see him picking up the box after she opened it and looking at it and seeing how nice and formed it was, and probably lined and just really nice. And he looked at that and he's just like, you should have sold this. Instead of using it and pouring it all over his feet and his body, you should have sold it and give it to the poor. Well, if she would have sold it for the point of giving it to the poor, where does it go? Judas. He had the money bag, and he was able to, that would be put in his pocket, and it says that he would use that for his purposes. So, very, very much a selfish thing, but I'm glad that Mary did not stop. Maybe it bothered her spirit that someone so close to Jesus was saying something like that, and Jesus perceived that. And in verse 7, he turns around and he says so much in these little words. He says, let her alone. You ever had somebody stand up for you? I love it. I love like watching the kids and somebody, they stand up for each other, or they buddy up and they're just like, you're not picking on my friend. They mean it. And they believe that they can take on the rest of the class to protect their friend. If you don't believe that, just hang around here a little bit and watch them, okay? They're very protective of each other. And especially if they have a special toy that they've worked out a deal with, that they're playing with it, now they'll protect that toy with their life. Absolutely. But it is interesting how Jesus pointed him out. Even though Judas was one that was going to betray him, Jesus knew this. There was things that he did that was kind of shady, but still he was part of the disciples and he was trusted. He was still in that inner circle. He was still at the dinner table. He was welcome. He wasn't kicked out, but there was just warnings about, they were very careful about him. But Jesus rebukes him at the table. I imagine at that point, the only thing you could probably hear in that room was the hair of Mary against Jesus' feet, or the rest of his body, wiping the oil onto him. Honoring him as a king. You know, sometimes we listen to the negativity or the different things that would pop up around us that kind of get us skirted away from the direction that God would have us to go in our personal life, in the lives of our family, in the lives of our workplace, and lives of the church. If we're not careful, we let those people that question, why did you do that? You know, it's not, don't look at this as Mary poured all this money out on Jesus. Mary did this act of humility. Why would you put yourself that low? Why would you give of all this stuff? Why would you do what we have other people paid to do? Why would you do, and you get all this questioned around. Sometimes that would turn somebody's attention and be like, well, you know what? I need to let somebody else do that. Or, you know what? Maybe this is a dumb idea. Maybe we need to get water, maybe some hot water and a rag, and let's do this, I don't want to get my hair dirty. I mean, you start doubting and putting things in the mind. And we have to be careful of that we don't let the outside world cloud our mind and our judgment, that we start questioning everything that we do. We question about coming to church. Am I too busy? Is this on my schedule? Do I want to miss the game? Do I want to miss the show? Am I too involved with whatever I'm doing? Do I have time to make time to worship with God's people? Do I take time to spend with my family? Do I take those moments as a special moment? There's those things that we would say we are so busy. We are a people that is very distracted. And especially when it comes to the course of being obedient to God. The other voices, like Judas' voice, he was very distracting. Jesus put him in his place, though. But we can be so distracted on things. One of the things that I'm convicted on, I share this with the boys on Sunday morning, and it is this right here. And I know you harp about it. You're like, oh, he picked up his phone. He said something about his phone. I use my phone all day. Okay, I'm not gonna paint the picture that I don't use it, I don't watch anything, and I don't do social media anymore. I can say that with a fact. So sorry if you tried to get up with me on there, but I do use that. That is a very useful tool, but it will drain the time out of the day. If you ever looked at one thing in your life that you spend the most time on, and the phone is one of those things that you can look at and easily tell you how much time you spend a week on that phone. It'll also tell you how long you spend on your particular apps that you have on your phone. It will surprise you to no end how many hours that does. It'll break it down daily if you need it to help you get a good concept of it. But you take something like that, and you need to be careful that is not something that just totally involves your life. Any free moment you have, you got to pick it up. I have a bad habit. I'll be transparent. I have a bad habit. I'm getting texts right now, by the way. Whoever did that, I hope you're watching. Again, I got another one. Thank you. But they're not used to me being in here, so they think I'm elsewhere. But you can get so sidetracked. And a phone may not be your problem. That might be something you can put away. One of mine is that. Maybe the other one is just being busy, doing tasks. Maybe you got something you like to do. All those things are good. You can have hobbies and things and keep all that in mind and still be able to be obedient to God. But just be careful about the things that take up our time, that we don't give all of our time to something else and God only gets that little portion. He doesn't need that little portion. He needs and he deserves to have a good solid portion of our day. In the Bible, in the Old Testament and things, when it talks about of our giving of ourselves, he says our first fruits. Part of the problem with Cain and his offering to God is, he thought it was great. He gave of his first of the tillings of the ground and the produce of the ground. He gave his best. I'm sure that it was a nice setting, beautiful, probably maybe even food we've never seen before. I don't know. But we know that he was in an environment where it was probably very fertile, growing very well, but it wasn't what was asked of God. Got sidetracked in some of his busyness. God gave him a chance to make it right, but instead he chose to take vengeance on his brother. And then God still had mercy on him. He was kind of a marked man, but God did give him a life to live after that. So you're not over if you mess up. If Mary was here and she got distracted in what she felt like she needed to do for Jesus, I believe Jesus would have said some few words to her of encouragement to continue what is in your heart. Because what Jesus was looking at was the intent of her heart. He was looking at, you have taken time away yet again to listen, to sit at my feet, to listen to my teaching, to humble yourselves and anoint me with oil. In her mind, and he was trying to make this very clear about, and I mean, he mentions this. He says, she has kept this for the day of my burial. I mean, this was something that was very special for her. We have things that are special that God puts on our heart to do. I just want to encourage you tonight not to let any distractions, what people may say, what they may make you feel. Maybe it's taking you out of your comfort zone. There's nobody else pushing you, but it's just out of your comfort zone. Let God help you with that. Let him help you complete that task. You may not need encouragement from God at all. You just may need that opportunity. Maybe you do need encouragement. But don't listen to those other voices deceive you and pick on you to the point that you just don't want to do. He was able to have this meal. He was able to be blessed by having this oil be put on him. And they had this time together that was very special. Yet again, Jesus had to call out Judas. But it also was another chance for Judas to listen. Leave her alone. She's doing what she feels is right for me. She's not sitting there counting dollars. She's sitting there doing what she felt was right. Wanted to bless her Lord. Those little words, let her alone, should have rung in Judas's ears because the plot was already there. He knew it was coming. He knew what he had done. There was probably guilt. There was probably conviction. So there's a lot in those words to him as well. For him to maybe stop and think about what he's doing. Maybe to bring some conviction to him for maybe after the fact, when Judas had to deal with that pain, when he had to take the money, the silver pieces, and he couldn't even keep it anymore. He had to throw it away. Ended up taking his own life. I hope he prayed. I hope he had time to talk to God about these decisions. God will make a way when it's hard to serve. He'll make a way for you to have forgiveness where sin may be the main cause of you not being able to serve him. But whatever it may be, let God have some room in your life to be able to be used by him. If you have distractions in your home and you're in your way, I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm not going to say it's impossible for me to get rid of this phone, but it's almost impossible. What I need to do is push it away. I look at the hours that I spend. It comes up every Sunday morning on the way to church. That's the way I got it timed. I'm a creature of habit, so I'm driving to church when it pops up on my phone, and I'm reminded every Sunday morning, what'd you do this past week? Did you give God enough time, or did you give that enough time? And then I think about, well, what did I do? I'll look on there and I'll look at my apps, and I said, well, this is when I said, God, I just need my me time right now. I need something to numb my brain a little bit so I'm not thinking, I'm just doing. I need that, God. And I'm trying to rationalize what I'm doing. When I should say, God, I need you. I need your word. I need to meditate on that. I need to be able to take time and sing some more praises, even though I need to be by myself when I do that. I need to memorize his word and get those refreshed. That's something like what we're doing in our Sunday school class. We're taking verses that we've learned, like a lot of the Awana verses. We're taking those and we're going back over those. And we're taking them verse or group verses at a time. and just kind of remembering what that means to us, what God is trying to say, and what was the importance of memorizing that. Was that for a check mark, or was that for an attaboy, a sticker, or was that for something of meaning? And it's amazing how they recall after we start studying it and looking at it. I can say a few words and they can finish it. It's a blessing to be able to do that, and they get encouraged by being able to do that. I wouldn't ever want to discourage them by not being able to completely remember a verse, but maybe encouraged by covering that. And that just makes me want to learn and remember all the more, because God's word is so special. There is nuggets of wisdom in here that you need today. You know, it's one of those things to be reading that, man, I wish I would have read that yesterday. You ever been there? I wish I would have seen that a couple days ago. That would have been helpful. Maybe that's because we didn't give enough time to read it or search it out. I just want to encourage you. If God's told you to give of yourself, do it. If something's getting in your way, ask God to help you to be able to put that away long enough to be able to complete what he's done. If you need to spend time with him, if you're just stressed and you need time to talk and you need time to spend with him, make sure you set that time. And don't be afraid to share it with your family. You know, I've heard some of the most awkward times in a family is when they got to sit down and pray or read the Bible. It'd be really awkward if you're not used to it. And you say, well, I want to go home. I want to start doing that. Beware, okay? You want to know when the arguments are going to happen? They usually happen when you say, go to bed, get ready to go to bed. Oh, man, really? No. Sit down and try to read the Bible with them. I'm talking to my friends right now. Hold on a minute, you know. Or I'm watching this show, or they try to do I'm doing the homework. That's when I get really suspicious. I'm like, you're doing homework this late, okay. But it is important to take that time. You know, for us to get strong, for the Christian body to get strong again, we got to get our family values back. We got to get our personal values back with God. And this has to be strengthened. And it is not easy. And there's going to be times where you're going to hear those voices, that voice in your head where it's going to be like, let it alone. Let it alone. It's not the time. Time for me right now. Letting yourself hear that and letting your family see that would change things. To let your work family know that, let them see that in your life through your actions, bring a lot of change. For the church to be able to see that with each other, it would change a lot of things. One of the poems that I remember with my grandmother, I've shared this with you a number of times. Some of you probably know what I'm getting ready to say. But the portion of that poem that I always remember is that it takes a heap of living to make a house a home. It takes a heap of living to make a house a home. And in that was not just living, but living for God, having godly values, and having that instilled in your home. Instead of having a house, you have a home. You have a place that you can go and your family can be together. There's hard days with that. There's hard days with just trying to be obedient to the Lord and keeping that together. But some of that can be helped by utilizing the people around you, asking for a prayer, asking for help. We need to believe in prayer. We need to have faith that when we pray, we talk to God, not just saying words to each other. We need to believe that we're this act of obedience by talking to God, this act of our faith by talking and sharing with him, laying these things at his feet, is the same kind of act Mary was doing here, humbling herself before Jesus. She didn't care about her looks, her appearance, what other people thought. As humble as she could be, used her hair to wipe this oil on. Sometimes we got to do that. We got to lay ourselves down, not worry about appearance, not worry about what people are saying or thinking. God, I'm here. Help me know what I need to do. Help me see what I need to do. Help me take action. Build that faith, build that trust, and know that God's got your back. Because when he needs to say it, whether it's to you or somebody else, let her alone stop them in their tracks. And for you, it'll stop you in your tracks. That voice of God is stern, but it's also in love to try to turn you and steer you in the right direction. So I hope and pray that if you have something in your life that you just, something or someone or some action, or maybe it might be a sickness, might be an awkward feeling or whatever may be holding you back from doing the work of God, don't let that be a complete distraction for you. Ask God for help how to deal with that. Take it slow. Take it slow, but make some movement in it. Trusting God that he's going to put something there that's far better than what you think you have. I'm telling you, it's not easy when that thing buzzes not to pick it up and look at it. It's not easy to sit there when you just want to sit outside for a minute and just not think. Y'all ever been there? Just don't want to think. Done enough thinking today. I don't have a cup yet, but I think somebody's going to end up ordering it for me. I'm done peopling today. I can't have that in my office. I'm not going to bring that, so don't worry. But no, I mean, it's not at a point that we don't want to be around people and we hate people or anything. There's sometimes in our lives we get our plates full. And sometimes there's days where it's hard to process certain things. And yes, we have our own coping mechanisms that we use, and not all of them are horrible or bad or unhealthy for us. Some of them are very important. I'm just trying to encourage you. Don't let that be a distraction where you miss out on what God has you to do. Let that be a joy that you can enjoy being in the presence of God and being obedient to him and seeing where he can take you in that. All right. Well, that's what I wanted to share with y'all tonight. I know it's kind of short, but those that joined with us online, we're going to go ahead and leave y'all at this point and move on. But we just pray you're encouraged tonight, and we're glad that you are with us.